So fascinating. And so the next part I wanted to read was about the education of Aurangzeb. So I found this very interesting. Here we go. It was at this time, upon the departure of the Persian ambassador, that Aurangzeb received with that admirable wisdom his tutor Mala Saleh, the history of which is rare and considerable. This old man, who long since had retired himself towards Kabul and settled himself on some lands which Shah Jahan had given him, and no sooner heard of the great fortune of Aurangzeb, his disciple, who had overcome Dara and all his other brothers, and was now king of Indostan. But he came in haste to the court, swelled with hopes of being presently advanced to no less than the dignity of an Omrah. He maketh his court and endeavors to engage all his friends, and Rashanara Begum, the king's sister, employs herself for him. But yet there was 3 whole months that Aurangzeb does not so much as look upon him, till at length wearied to have him always at his elbow and before his face, he sent for him to a place apart, where there was nobody but Hakim Muluk Danekmend Khan and 3 or 4 of those Omras that pretend to science, and then spoke to him to this effect, as I was informed by Aga. So this is cool. What is it you would have of me, doctor? Can you reasonably desire I should make you one of the chief Omras of my court? Let me tell you, if you had instructed me as you should have done, nothing would be more just. For I am of this persuasion that a child well educated and instructed is as much, at least, obliged to his master as to his father. But where are those good documents you have given me? In the first place, you have taught me that all that Frangastakhan, so it seems they call Europe, was nothing, but I know not what little island, of which the greatest king was he of Portugal, and next to him he of Holland, and after him he of England. And as to the other kings, as those of France and Andalusia, you have represented them to me as our pretty Rajas, telling me that the kings of Indostan were far above them altogether, and that they were the true and only Humajons, the Ekbars, the Jehangures, the Shah Jahans, the fortunate ones, the great ones, the conquerors and kings of the world, and that Persia and Uzbek, Kakguer, Tartar and Cathay, Pegu, China, and Machina did tremble at the name of the kings of Indostan. Admirable geography! You should rather have taught me exactly to distinguish all those different states of the world, and well to understand their strength, their way of fighting, their customs, religions, governments, and interests, and by the perusal of solid history, to observe their rise, progress, decay, and whence, how, and by what accidents and errors those great changes and revolutions of empires and kingdoms have happened. I have scarce learnt of you the name of my grandfathers, the famous founders of this empire. So far were you from having taught me the history of their life, and what course they took to make such great conquests. You had a mind to teach me the Arabian tongue, to read and to write. I am much obliged to you, forsooth, for having made me lose so much time upon a language that requires 10 or 12 years to attain its perfection. As if the son of a king should think it be an honor to him to be a grammarian or some doctor of the law, and to learn other languages than those of his neighbors, when he cannot well be without them. He to whom is so precious for so many weighty things, which he ought by times to learn. As if there were any spirit that did not with some reluctancy, and even with a kind of debasement, employ itself in so sad and dry an exercise, so longsome and tedious, as is that of learning words. Thus did Aurangzeb resent the pedantic instructions of his tutor, to which 'tis affirmed in that court that after some entertainment which he had with others, he further added the following reproof. Know you not that childhood well governed, being a state which is ordinarily accompanied with a happy memory, is capable of thousands of good precepts and instructions, which remain deeply impressed the whole remainder of a man's life, and keep the mind always raised for great actions? The law, prayers, and sciences, may they not as well be learned in our mother tongue as in Arabic? You told my father, Shah Jahan, that you would teach me philosophy. 'Tis true, I remember very well that you have entertained me for many years with airy questions of things that afford no satisfaction at all to the mind, and are of no use to human society, empty notions and mere fancies that have only in them that they are very hard to understand and very easy to forget, which are only capable to tire and spoil a good understanding, and to breed an opinion that is unsupportable. I still remember that after you had thus amused me, I know not how long, with your fine philosophy, all I retained of it was a multitude of barbarous and dark words, proper to bewilder, perplex, and tire out the best wits, and only invented the better to cover the vanity and ignorance of men like yourself, that would make us believe that they know all, and that those under those obscure and ambiguous words are hid great mysteries, which they alone are capable to understand. If you had seasoned me with that philosophy which formeth the mind to ratiocination, and insensibly accustoms it to be satisfied with nothing but solid reasons, if you had given me those excellent precepts and doctrines which raise the soul above the assaults of fortune, and reduce her to an unshakable and always equal temper, and permit her not to be lifted up by prosperity, nor debased by adversity, if you had taken care to give me the knowledge of what we are, and what are the first principles of things, and had assisted me in forming in my mind a fit idea of the greatness of the universe, and of the admirable order and motion of the parts thereof, if, I say, you had instilled into me this kind of philosophy, I should think myself incomparably more obliged to you than Alexander was to Aristotle, and believe it my duty to recompense you otherwise than he did him. Should not you, instead of your flattery, have taught me somewhat of that point so important to a king, which is what the reciprocal duties are of a sovereign to his subjects, and those of subjects to their sovereign? And ought not you to have considered that one day I should be obliged with the sword to dispute my life and the crown with my brothers? Is not that the destiny almost of all the sons of Indostan? Have you ever taken any care to make me learn what 'tis to besiege a town, or to set an army in array? For these things I am obliged to others, not at all to you. Go and retire to the village whence you are come, and let nobody know who you are, or what is become of you. At that time there arose a kind of tempest against astrologers, which did not displease me. Most people of Asia are so infatuated by judiciary astrology that they believe there is nothing done here below, but 'tis written above, for so they speak. In all their undertakings, therefore, they consult astrologers. When two armies are ready to give battle, they beware of falling on till the astrologer hath taken and determined the moment he fancies propitious for the beginning of the combat. And so, when the matter is about electing a captain general of an army, of dispatching an ambassador, of concluding a marriage, or beginning a voyage, and of doing any other thing, as buying a slave, putting on new apparel, etc., nothing of all that is done without the sentence of Mr. Stargazer, which is an incredible vexation, and a custom drawing after its such important consequences, that I know not how it can subsist so long. For the astrologer must needs have knowledge of all that passeth, and of all that is undertaken, from the greatest affairs to the least. But behold, it happened that the prime astrologer of the king was drowned, which occasioned a great noise at court, and was a great discredit to astrology, for he, being the person that determined the moments of all enterprises and actions for the king, and the Omrahs, everyone wondered how a man so experienced in that for so long time had dispensed good adventures to others, could not foresee his own misfortune. There were not wanting those who pretended to be wiser than others, and said that in Frangistan, where sciences did flourish, the grandees do suspect all such kind of people, and that some hold them even no better than mountebanks, that 'tis much doubted whether this knowledge is grounded upon good and solid reasons, and that it may very well be some fancy of astrologers, or rather an artifice to make themselves necessary to the great ones, and to make them in some measure to depend on them. So I find that very interesting, because it's almost like they're taking the teachers in general. He shows several different examples of teachers and educated wise ones abusing their power, and this is me again talking now, sorry, abusing their power of knowledge and supposed wisdom accrued through just practice and penitence and study, and they're abusing it to make it like doctrine. Like now, how we see people like Fauci, who just will spit out everything, and then if you disagree with him, it's you're anti-science and all this stuff. Meanwhile, what they consider science isn't science at all. None of it's proven. They just say it. It's political, it's nonsense, it's detrimental, it's pure evil, and they consider it as good education. So like this guy, he confronts his tutor and his teacher saying that, hey, you didn't really teach me anything. You taught me all this nonsense of all these hypothetical situations, all this like imaginary nonsense that means nothing when applied to the real world. It reminds me a lot of the education system that I went through my entire life. When I went to college, which I didn't want to do, I learned very little. I learned almost nothing. The things I gained in experience were actually very knowledgeable and had a lot of information and insight packed in them. But the things that I was taught by teachers were absolute garbage. None of them have helped me in the future. Absolutely none. The things that I've learned with my families and the creativity I've explored on my own has taught me everything in this world. The value of these teachers is nil. And especially nowadays, it's even worse. I went to school 20, 25, 30 years ago, and it was crumbling. Now it's a disaster. It's an absolute shame. It's absolutely despicable what libs of TikTok and others show is happening to our education system. And this has been going on for a long time. It's almost as if it has always been corrupted. And there's always people who just seek out the educational roles so that they can delude and just lead people astray, lead everything astray, so that nobody progresses except those who have the true knowledge within them and with their supplies, like the Smithsonian, and with these private investors and these people that know and laugh about our lack of knowledge of reality while they educate and write books that just totally tell garbage, filth that breeds humanity into a ditch, and it just has no inspiration, no positivity, nothing, because you're grasping at a fake reality. People don't understand that, when you're fully immersed in fully believing in a fake history or a fake anything, you're really just doing the universe knows, and you're really doing nothing beneficial. It's actually a poison. It's a cancer to your mind, your soul, and probably your body too. We need to fix the education system, and what we're doing in this community is a good start. Just telling people to question things is very important. Telling people that you're always learning. The entire life is an educational classroom. That is very important. There's no limit. Nobody's smarter than others. Just even seeing people and putting people on a pedestal for their education is a detriment to your own knowledge. We are all capable of grasping the miracles of the universe. We all should be taught that way, and we will. I will help and define a future educational path because I love teaching. My whole family is teachers. I really love it. Something just is important, absolutely, about guiding people in the right path towards happiness and combating the monstrosities of the evil communist just nothingness that is coming in this education system. It has to be battled. Let's do it always. Bless you all.